welcome to No Broken Legs. I am your host, Evan Belfiore. It is pretty late on a Saturday night, and joining me to find you winners for Week 9 of the NFL season is Jimmy Champ. Jimmy, how are you?
I'm good. I'm going to pour one out for all the 16 seeds that had to get their butts kicked in Ohio high school first-round playoff games last night. So pour a little one out for those kids that did their best, but the seasons came to an end last night.
Let's pour a little one out for Houston, too. The one game that's in the book, the New York Jets managed to get a win. That was an ugly game. The Jets tried to give it away, but is Houston just too beat up, Jimmy?
They're just so beat up at key positions, and they feel like they haven't yet learned how to get through in-game adversity. That seems to be their crux right now. So they've got to work through that. And I think they'll be okay. I mean, the Jets defense played a pretty good game. There was also a couple close calls as they keep happening. And then while it was a great, incredible catch, somehow the 1 foot in the shin of the same foot equals 2 feet for Garrett Wilson, but not for George Pickens. So I don't know how that works.
Yeah, well, you can't tap the same foot twice, but the shin counts as a knee, so that counts as 2 feet.
But
I'm not saying that rule makes any sense, but that's how it works.
Yeah, but I think that's where the Texans. I think they're pretty beat up on the offensive line, and without two really good wide receivers. But it still felt even during the first half they were okay, but they lost some players at the end of the first half. And they just didn't seem to have to deal with those changes.
Yeah.
So, and Sean's he's got to be better outside. Like, he's got to be better outside on the road, which, there's always going to be that learning curve there. So, I still think they're probably
they still have sunny days ahead.
Yeah, they're still probably one of the 4 best teams in the AFC. So,
before we get to the Cleveland Browns, we have 2 teams on the bye. The Pittsburgh Steelers and the San Francisco 49ers will not be playing this week, so we don't have to worry about them. The Cleveland Browns got a win, Jimmy, and It was the type of win that makes you question why Deshaun Watson had been playing for so many weeks when it was very clear that he was not a good quarterback, because they could have won the Vegas game. They could have won the Cincy game if Winston was the backup, but instead they ran DTR out there because that they have a front office making decisions. Is that where we're at?
That's where we were with Deshaun Watson, 100%. And fortunately, we don't. Well, I guess unfortunately, but unfortunately, we don't actually work for a Cleveland sports media program that has any affiliation to the Cleveland Browns. So we can go on our little podcast and we can say that game sure as shit looked like everybody ran harder, played faster, played smarter, less pre-snap penalties, less stupid penalties, less penalties during plays, better tackling, better blocking, better running, guys catching footballs, being in the right spot at the right time. Like, sure as shit looked like they showed you they didn't want to play with Deshaun Watson.
Whether they were playing harder because they don't want to play for Deshaun Watson or because they just know Deshaun Watson's not good. Like, either way, it doesn't really matter, because with Winston out there, the offense looked like a real NFL offense for a change. And Winston had 2 passes that were thrown directly to Baltimore defensive backs who just promptly dropped them, and he probably had 2 other passes that should have been incomplete.
Yeah,
it was kind of a fluky win, and because of the interceptions that Winston threw but weren't caught, and then Baltimore receivers probably dropped another 4 or 5 passes. The one to Rashad Bateman, when that thing hit his chest and bounced off, I just erupted into laughter because it made me so happy that it was like, oh my God, the Browns probably are going to win this game because Baltimore can't catch today, and this is hilarious.
Kyle Hamilton is by far, like, even if their secondary was healthy, Kyle Hamilton is still probably the best player in that Ravens secondary.
Yeah.
I cannot believe he dropped that interception. But boy, am I glad he did.
It was too easy.
Right? But I mean, that's going to be the Winston experience, just like it was the Flacco experience. I think
Mm-hmm.
you'll learn. I think this week we will get to learn way more about what kind of floor ceiling the Browns team has with Jameis Winston at quarterback.
Yeah, and that leads us right into the game here with the Los Angeles Chargers, where the Browns are only 2.5 games behind the Chargers for the 7th spot in the playoffs. I think the playoffs are kind of nonsensical at this point. They'd have to get to 10 wins probably, which would be 8-1 to finish out. Maybe you can go 7-2 and sneak in with 9 wins, but that's going to be a tough road to hoe. I don't think that's possible, but if you win this week, you at least keep that dream alive and you keep the team playing hard. You go into the bye and you're thinking, all right, if we can come out and beat Pittsburgh, beat Denver, beat Pittsburgh, we're in it. Or maybe go 2-1 during that 3-game stretch. You're still in it.
Yeah, I think if you win this game, regardless of where you end up at the end of the season, I think if you win this game, it does for the entire organization. It changes your perception of what could possibly still come true this year. Like if you lose this game, players are going to be traded before Tuesday. Like,
yeah, the number of players that could possibly be traded does increase, and I think either way, they should be looking to move somebody like Zadarius Smith, who's probably not going to be back next year because they're not really going to be able to afford him. I don't know who else they would look to move. Maybe one of the cornerbacks. Maybe you see if, Philadelphia and Baltimore are cornerback desperate. Maybe they give you a 3rd-round pick for Newsome. I don't think he's worth a 3rd-round pick, but if they're going to give you one, then I don't know how you can say no.
Yeah, like I agree with you. I mean, I think the playoffs are far-fetched, but I think there's a lot of parity in the AFC, and it may not take 10 wins to make the playoffs.
A lot of divisional games left to be played, so a lot of these teams are going to beat each other up. And we'll just have to see how it all plays out. But for this week, the Cleveland Browns are hosting the Los Angeles Chargers. The Chargers are now 1-point favorites. This was 1.5 just yesterday. The over-under sits at 42.5, minus 115 for the Chargers, minus 105 for the Browns. When we did the schedule game in our preview pod, we looked at this as a game where Jim Harbaugh will probably just outcoach Kevin Stefanski because we see it happen where Stefanski just gets flat out outcoached. We see and the team just doesn't really seem to have an answer. I still think that's what's going to happen this week. What do you think is going to happen this week?
Yeah, I hope. We said for us last week was a stay away because we just didn't quite know what it was going to look like, how the team was going to respond with all the fan drama and all that nonsense. We weren't sure. We saw the way they responded. They looked pretty good. For me this week, this is not a stay away. I'm heavy on the Chargers here.
And there was also, you're getting, you just got Nick Chubb back, the general relief of not having to deal with the Watson stuff anymore. And then that stadium was really ready to play. They wanted to win one for Jimmy Donovan.
Yep. And it was incredible and awesome that happened. But the Chargers,
they look like a pretty good team.
Yeah, statistically, even though they don't have quite as many wins as I thought they would have at this point, they've lost a couple weird ones, but statistically they have about the best defense in the league, and I think it'll be a little too much for Cleveland to overcome because I do feel like there'll be a couple spots where Harbaugh outcoaches Stefanski.
I agree. I'm really interested, though, to see what does DeJuan Jones look like at left tackle in this game because that defensive line for the Chargers is pretty good. How does he hold up? And
it looked pretty good last week.
Yeah, and honestly, do we need to see any more of Jedrick Wills?
No.
If
Even
they
if Jones
think
is
they
terrible,
have,
we don't need to send any more of Jedrick Wills.
That leads into my question: should the Browns see if they can get anything for Wills?
Yes.
I mean, there's going to be teams out there looking for tackle help. I think they should just to get him off the roster. I just don't think he's good. I don't think he plays hard.
Maybe they could get like a couple of Slyman's gift certificates for him.
He's another guy that maybe somebody gives you a 4th round pick. We already
Yeah,
saw a left tackle move from Jacksonville to Minnesota. They had a bad injury. Maybe somebody thinks they can put him on the right side and get more out of him. I don't know. But I think it's worth at least letting the other GMs know, hey, we're done with Jedrick Wills if anybody needs tackle help. Although, if I was in a fellow GM, I would laugh at him and say, yeah, but Jedrick Wills doesn't give you tackle help. What do you expect the offense to look like?
I expect it to try to look like it did last week. Do we agree that that was Ken Dorsey calling Kevin Stefanski's offense last week?
Yeah, that was the text message we shared. And after the game,
Right.
when all the Watson apologists were coming out and talking about how if they would have had Ken Dorsey calling plays, things would have been different, Ron Brown and I were definitely putting our foot down on the no side of that because he was calling Stefanski's plays. They were running the exact same offense that they've been running all year that Watson hasn't been able to do. The difference was Winston was getting the ball out quickly and he was being decisive. And that's the thing that Watson doesn't do. And I talked about it before the season with Watson. He did not spend his time out of the league studying what defenses had done to adapt to that late teen surge in offense. And that is why Watson is always confused, and that's why he doesn't look decisive back there. Because everything he's taking a test that he hasn't read any of the chapters for. Because instead of studying film and making sure he was ready when he came back, he was too busy trying to keep his good guy image when that was already gone.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the offense. I think the offense will look as similar to last week as it can. I would imagine Chubb gets a few more carries as you're back into it a little bit more. Thought Donta Foreman, I thought he looked pretty good last week too. So I think you'll see that same style offense, and good or
Yeah.
bad, like it or not, right or wrong, Jameis is going to let the thing fly, man.
Yeah. And we'll see if the Chargers can hold on to some of those interceptions. If they do, it's probably an easy win for the Chargers. They probably win by 10-ish maybe. But
Yeah.
the offense looks good. You at least know that you have some players that can do something.
But I mean, because we have spent a lot of time. I think we were kind of on like we expected Amari Cooper to not look good this year, and he did not look good. But we definitely beat up the wide receivers. So kudos to the pass catching group for the Browns last week. Like they really did a really good job. So kudos to them, and we'll see if they can do it again. I mean,
Yeah, that Baltimore pass defense, which we'll get to here in just a second, is not very good. So
it's
that
not,
definitely
but
plays into it. But if you
yeah,
can't look really good against the bad defenses, you're
exactly,
not going to be able to do anything
exactly.
against the better defenses. So
And
it
there
was good
could
to
have,
see him put up a big day.
yeah, there couldn't have been a whole lot of reps with them with Jameis. I don't think so. It was good to see. Even if it was just for one game, it was good to see. So
Yeah, because he wasn't getting any reps in those weeks when Watson was
no,
starting. So you
no,
would expect maybe a little more. Yeah, you would expect a little more there. You would expect them to be more comfortable with each other coming into this game. But I just
yeah,
think the Chargers are a better team, top to bottom.
yeah,
This
no,
is just sort of where I
yeah,
come in, and I figure Winston's going to throw a bad interception, at least one. So, but they should at least be able to keep this game somewhat close, at least keep it within a score for most of the game.
yeah. And kudos to the Cleveland Browns for continuing to be able to contain Derrick Henry.
Yeah, they did a good job
Like,
against the run, and that'll be important because the Chargers are going to look to run the ball.
yep,
Up next, we have the aforementioned Baltimore Ravens. They are hosting the Denver Broncos. This was 9.5. It has also dropped a half point. Baltimore is now favored by 9. Over/under sits at 46, plus 360 for minus 470 for Baltimore, plus 360 for Denver. This just seems like too many points for a team like Denver that's going to throw the ball a lot.
yeah. I personally I like Baltimore here. I think last week left a bad taste in their mouth. I don't. I just don't know if Denver will be able to limit Baltimore like Cleveland was able to on the big play front. So I think Baltimore. I do think they can cover this. I think they can win
Interesting.
this by 10.
I think Denver's defense is pretty good. And I think they're going to be able to score points on this Baltimore Ravens defense because it seems like everybody does.
Yeah, you ain't wrong there.
Another AFC North game sees the Cincinnati Bengals hosting the Las Vegas Raiders. Bengals favored by 7. 45 is the over-under. Minus 340 for Cincy. Plus 270. Yeah, that seems like a really big number.
I mean, I'm not, I'm not advocating for the Raiders, but I do not understand how this line is what it is. I'm taking the Raiders here to cover.
Yeah, me too. That's way too many points. Up next, we have the Buffalo Bills hosting the Miami Dolphins. The Bills are now 6.5-point favorites. Another move of a half point. This, though, towards Buffalo. 49.5 is the over-under. Minus 290 for Buffalo. Plus 235 for Miami. Jimmy, we talk about this all the time with Miami. The next time they beat a good team is going to be the first time they beat a good team. Even with Tua back, Buffalo seems to have their number.
Yeah. Miami just doesn't feel like the team that I thought they would be, even when healthy. And Buffalo they're playing really well right now, so I'm going to take the Bills here.
Our next game sees the Washington Armada. They are 3.5-point favorites taking on the New York Giants in the Meadowlands. 44 is the over-under, minus 205 for Washington, plus 170 for the Giants. Any hangover from that ridiculous win that Washington got last week?
If you were playing a competitive football game, yes, but you're playing the Giants, they'll be fine. Like, give me the Armada all day.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Even though the Giants keep playing Daniel Jones, and I'm not sure why. If he gets hurt, his contract's guaranteed for next year. That just seems like bad business.
Yeah, and I don't, it's weird that you're playing Daniel Jones because at this point, he's not the guy.
Yeah, you don't want him to be your quarterback next year, so I don't understand why they're putting themselves in a position where they would be forced to have him be their quarterback.
I agree.
I don't know.
These are the things bad organizations do.
Yeah, bad organization is going to bad organization.
But, yeah, I mean, I would say if there ever was a trap game, you would think it would be this one.
Oh, yeah.
After that crazy win last week, so... But I don't think the Giants are good enough to win a trap game right now.
Up next, a big NFC game between two teams that are kind of... I think we know who Dallas is. We're still trying to figure out what Atlanta is. The Falcons at home are 3.5-point favorites. 52 is the over-under. Minus 170 for the Falcons. Plus 142 for Dallas. This feels like a field goal game to me. I'm going to take Dallas, even though I don't like it, and I think I'm just going to stay away from this game.
Yeah, for me, this is a stay away because, there have been weeks where the Falcons' defense has been bad and they've won games, and then there have been weeks where the Falcons' defense has been really bad and they've lost games they should win.
Yeah.
I just don't know. I don't have a good vibe on them, and, I don't think Dallas is a good team, but if Atlanta's defense doesn't show up a little bit, they are talented enough to score some points, so... I agree with you with the field goal, so I'll pick Dallas, but for me, this is a stay away. But, the Atlanta offense, they've at least figured out how to use the majority of the weapons they have.
Yeah, they don't seem to use them all in the same game, but they do at least over time use them all.
Yeah, it feels like maybe the four of them have to gather and play like Rochambeau before the game. To see who gets to be the guy this week, I don't know. It's really weird.
Yeah. Up next, we have another game that I'm not even touching with a 10-foot pole. The New Orleans Saints are traveling to Carolina to take on the shitty Panthers. The Saints are 7.5-point favorites. The over/under is 43.5. Minus 345 for the Saints. Plus 275 for the Panthers. The Saints absolutely blew out the Carolina Panthers in week 1, but they got Spencer Rattler in there, and I don't know what the fuck's going to happen. Is New Orleans really a touchdown plus better than Carolina? I mean, Carolina is shitty.
I think it's the difference between a bad team and a shitty team. I think New Orleans could win this game 9-0, and it wouldn't be a surprise. But then again, if Carolina won 21-17, we'd be like, yeah, not a surprise there either. But I'm going to take New Orleans. I agree. This is not a game I would gamble with because I think the variance of the outcomes is so volatile. but I will pick New Orleans here.
All right, you changed my mind. I'll go with New Orleans just because. Do you know who has the longer losing streak coming into this game? It's actually the Saints. They've lost 6 in a row to Carolina's 5.
That's crazy.
The Carolina Panthers, by the way, in 8 games are minus 147. So that's a number that should make everybody want to take the Saints. So
that's so bad.
I will change my mind, even though I hate the Saints.
That is so bad.
Speaking of bad, we have the Tennessee Titans hosting the New England Patriots in a battle of bad teams. The Tennessee Titans are 3-point favorites. 38.5 is the over-under. Minus 162 for Tennessee, plus 136 for New England. I don't know, man. What do you think?
These are 2 bad teams that are playing bad football. And I actually, I think if Drake May can learn how to slide and not take hits like he took last week, Drake May might be competent. Maybe. I'm going to take the Titans here, but for me, this game is a stay away. I don't want any part of it. I don't think I'll watch any of this game. I think it's going to be ugly football. I don't want it. I don't like it, but I'm going to take the Titans.
I'll take the Titans too. I like the under, and other than that, I know I don't want to watch any of this game, and I know I don't want to talk about it anymore. So let's move on to the Philadelphia Eagles hosting the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are also a bad football team. The Eagles 7.5-point favorites. Over under sits at 46, minus 325 for Philly, plus 260 for Jacksonville. Trevor Lawrence has actually been playing better. Does that make you think they can cover this?
No, I think just like we talked about, with Cleveland's receivers last week, as you said, if there was a game where you're going to play well, it should be against Baltimore's secondary. The Jacksonville Jaguars are trying to fold on this season. In Philadelphia, better be 8 points better than them.
Yeah, I agree with that.
It just better be.
Hurts hasn't been turning the ball over lately, which is a big thing for them.
Yeah, if you believe you are a serious team, if you want to build off of last week, then you've got to dominate this football game. Which they should be able to do. So I'm going to take the Eagles here.
Up next, we have a game that is completely flipped. Chicago was favored by 1.5. Now Arizona is favored by 1.5 at home. 44.5 is the over-under, minus 125 for Arizona, plus 105 for Chicago. I don't know what to make of that. That's a big 3-point swing.
It is. It's probably all the Bears fans' public money is probably what it was that flipped it.
Well, no, because Arizona's favored now.
Well, I know, but after that performance last week...
Oh, yeah. They said, fuck this team, we're betting on Arizona.
I would imagine that's what happened, man.
I liked Chicago when they were 1.5-point favorites, so clearly I'm going to take them as 1.5-point underdogs.
I'm going to take Arizona here. They're playing just well enough to win some games, and I gotta see how Chicago responds to that last week, because really, you made some of the worst coaching decisions of the week last week were done by Eberflus. Caleb Williams did not look good until the very end of that game.
True.
And I don't quite know defensively as a unit how you just bounce back from losing a game like that. So if I was Arizona, I think I'd run a Hail Mary on my first offensive play.
All right, you convinced me. I'm going to take Arizona. I haven't had a feel for that team all year. I just haven't, and they seem to play better at home.
Yeah.
I still don't think Kyler Murray's very good. I just don't.
I don't think he's very good either, but he's right now, they're doing just enough with the weapons they have. I think they're going to be okay in this one. But I'm curious to see how Chicago responds to losing a game like that. I think it's going to be a game I want to watch to see how that response looks.
Yeah, that's fair. Up next, big NFC North game. The Detroit Lions traveling to Green Bay. The Lions are now 2.5-point favorites. This has moved a half point towards Green Bay after being 3 earlier in the week. 47.5 is the over-under, minus 148 for Detroit, plus 124 for Green Bay. All right, Jimmy, tell everybody why Detroit's going to fumble this game away.
Why is Detroit going to fumble this game away? Because Detroit is playing absolute bully football. They're not holding anything back for games that matter. They, but they just are getting every advantage to go their way, and I think Green Bay is going to punch them in the mouth. I think my man Xavier, Mister Interception for Green Bay, is going to have a pick six. Detroit's going to melt down just like they did against Tampa Bay, and Green Bay's going to win this game by a touchdown, buddy.
I think Detroit's going to win this game by running all over Green Bay, just like they do everybody. They're going
We'll
to
see.
let Jared Goff throw 15 passes for 200 yards, and it's going to be enough to win because they know who they are, and they just grind teams to dust. That offensive line is so strong. The running game with the two running backs it's just everything they do seems to be clicking right now, and they're not doing anything special. I know they're running a lot of trick plays, but they're running like 3 trick plays. The rest of the offense is Jared Goff handing the ball off to Gibbs and Montgomery, and that's not going anywhere. That's gonna travel well. And I think the Green Bay, I think they're too erratic.
I agree with you. There's always the chance that it's just bad Jordan Love for the whole game. But I think much like with the Tampa game, I think what you'll see in this one is I think you'll see Detroit have a couple long, controlled drives where they run the ball, they do what they want to do, and then Jordan Love hits those big plays for quick scores, and then their coaching staff malfunctions and goes, "Well, Jared Goff can do that too." No, he can't.
Yeah,
No, he
but I think they
can't.
learned that in that game against Tampa.
I hope so. I hope so because it is good for the league for Detroit to be good. I will 100% agree with that. But I'm all over. I'm all over Green Bay this week.
Next up, a big game in the NFC West. The Los Angeles Rams traveling to Seattle to take on the Seahawks. The Rams are 1.5-point favorites. 48 is the over-under, minus 122 for the Rams, plus 102 for Seattle. It looks like the Rams are healthy, and if they're healthy, they're scary, man.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they were only mostly healthy last week, and they looked really good. Seattle's clearly got some things to work out on both sides of the ball right now after their performance last week. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm all over the Rams here.
Also, that Seattle home field advantage does not exist like it used to.
Doesn't feel like it. Doesn't feel like it.
Up next, the Minnesota Vikings, 5-point favorites hosting the Indianapolis Colts, who are going to be led by Joe Flacco. Over-under sits at 46.5, plus 180 for Indianapolis, minus 218 for Minnesota. Let's talk about the Anthony Richardson thing very quickly.
Yeah.
Everybody's
Let's talk
freaking
about
out about him being benched as if they're giving up on him. I don't think that's the case because I think they're doing right by their veterans trying to make a playoff run with Joe Flacco, which isn't going to happen with Richardson. And then in the offseason, when Flacco's gone, Richardson's going to be the starter next year. I think that's how this plays out. So I think everybody's clutching their pearls over nothing.
like I think there's a lot to it because for the first thing is like the Colts have a good defense. The Colts have probably a top 5 offensive line in the league. Jonathan Taylor is still really good. I think Trey Sermon is a good backup. I think they've got a couple good weapons as pass catchers. So I think what you said is the key is that you have a lot of your roster that is built to win now, and you don't quite know what to do with Anthony Richardson. Like, that was weird seeing a quarterback do what he did and then
Yeah,
admit
stepping
it.
off the field, and
Like,
I think that gave Sarkisian enough rope to do what he did, and I think that gave Sarkisian the ability to sit him down and make it look like it's not just for performance reasons.
yeah, like it was such kind of a strange thing. Now I will say I do believe like the play he tapped out on was like I think a 3rd and 18. So like it wasn't like he was tapping out and he's not going to be out there for a 3rd and 2 that you can convert. But he does not look good. He does not look ready. But
You know what he
I
looks
think
like? He looks like a quarterback in college that could barely complete 50% of his passes.
yeah, I feel like the Colts are somehow distancing themselves from the fact that you drafted a project quarterback who had barely any starts in college as the 4th overall pick, and then you're upset that he's playing like a project. Like
Yeah,
that's
it's
weird to me.
just you overdrafted a guy, Now you feel obliged to play him, even though everybody who has eyes can see he's not good. He's not ready. He needs
No.
to. You want to talk about a guy who needs to sit on the sidelines and watch and
Yeah.
understand and study film and get reps in practice so that he can
Yep.
get good enough to be on the field in the game.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. I don't think it's as big of a deal. Like, I was kind of surprised at how much outrage there was over it.
Oh, they don't
But
have
it,
Watson to talk about, so they had to fill time somehow.
well, you ain't wrong there, I guess. Like, it did kind of surprise me. They were like, oh, the project player's playing like a project? I can't believe it. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Really weird. But I do think for the organization, kudos to them for not doing what the Browns did and just forcing Deshaun Watson to play. Like, they have a better chance to win with Joe Flacco. You should put him out there. Like, the play action game
Oh yeah.
with Jonathan Taylor and Joe Flacco should be really dynamic. I think it's a really good idea.
Yeah, and they should have Richardson just watching tape of guys like Lamar Jackson. And really, the guy
Yeah.
he should be looking at is Malik Willis in Green Bay, who's a guy that I don't
Yeah.
think is a very good thrower of the football, but they found a way to make it work.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that. And I I have a hard time believing in this game that Joe Flacco will not battle back for a backdoor cover. Like, I'm taking the Colts here. I think they will. I don't think they will win the game, but I believe Flacco will hit all of his numbers and they will cover this spread.
I like Minnesota in this game. Just, I don't know. I feel like if they're going to be good, they have to beat Indianapolis by at least a touchdown.
That's fair.
But that
that's
probably means Indianapolis is going to win outright. So all bettors should take that advice that you just gave and ignore what I said because I haven't been right about Minnesota much this year.
fair. Yeah, Minnesota's been tricky, man.
The Kansas City Chiefs, Monday night, hosting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're 9-point favorites. 45.5 is the over-under, minus 470 for Kansas City, plus 360 for the Buccaneers. This just seems like a game where teams cannot run the ball on Kansas City, and with the lack of weapons at receiver for Tampa Bay, it's going to be a tough day for Baker, it looks like.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be a sad, long Monday night for the Fighting Baconeers, man. Everybody's been waiting for an offensive explosion from the Chiefs. Well, just watch Monday night.
Yeah, Tampa
this
Bay's
should be,
secondary's so beat up.
yeah, yeah, it should be an absolute get-right game for the Chiefs passing attack. I think the Chiefs will win this game by 2 touchdowns and just continue to be the best team in the NFL.
Yeah. The only thing that gives me pause is Kansas City being up 14, Tampa Bay getting the ball with like 2 minutes left in the backdoor cover. Because Kansas City's shown they're susceptible to it. They were susceptible to it last week with Las Vegas.
Yeah.
So that's definitely out there. So
Yeah.
maybe tease this down to 6.5.
Yeah, that's probably not a bad idea.
What do you like for parlays?
Man, there are. I feel like for me, there are games that I'm just like. I'm almost to a point where I'm not sure who's good, but I feel like I know who's bad.
Yeah.
So those are the games that I'm personally attacking. Just for myself, like for me, I'm probably I'm probably all over Philadelphia and Washington because they are playing 2 teams that I know are bad, and probably points being scored in the Saints Panthers game because I know the Panthers are bad, and then the same thing with the Falcons game because I know that defense is bad.
Yeah. You can get
So
the Rams, the Commanders, and the Eagles on the money line at plus 240, 254.
yeah, that's a damn good parlay right there.
Just on the money line. I know the Eagles are minus 325, but that's not killing you. And then
No,
if you
that's
like
not
one of
killing
these other games, like Detroit's, if you like Detroit, add them in. That's a 4-pick parlay at plus 503.
Yeah, that's nice. That's
You're at least
quite
getting
nice.
some odds. Pair up those guys. I like your idea with Philadelphia and Washington. Pair those guys up with other teams that you have a good feeling about and try and make some money that way.
Yep.
Any players you think are going to go off?
man. There, for me, I want to be all over. I want to be all over Atlanta, and I want to be all over Philadelphia, and I want to be all over Washington. Like, I feel like if there's a week for, I just feel like if there's a week for Philadelphia to really showcase, and especially last week where you chose to not really use Saquon, I think you probably come back this week and you use him a lot. So I love that. And then for me, with Flacco with Flacco playing, I've got to look at the Colts pass catchers and Jonathan Taylor.
I will definitely be playing the Flacco parlay, and I'll be running the Winston parlay. Over yards, I think they're both going to throw a touchdown or two, and they'll probably both throw a pick. I also like Baker. I also think Baker's going to throw 2 interceptions this week. He's going to throw at least one because he doesn't have the good pass catchers. And I think he gets a bad rap as a guy that turns the ball over a lot, even though I think in many of those cases, he knows that if he doesn't make great throws, they're not going to win the game, so he just sort of lets it fly.
Yeah, I agree with that. Do you think Baltimore, with the way last week went, do you think Baltimore will course correct and run the ball 50 times this week?
I mean, they should. I mean, they should. They should be looking to pound the ball. That's their game. When they lose is, what do we say after they lose? Man, they really should have ran the ball more.
Yeah.
But Denver's defense is pretty good. If they can maybe stuff the run a little bit early, maybe they can convince Monken to call more pass plays. And with that defense that they have, I liked Bo Nix last week to put up some big numbers, and he did. So I don't know why he's not going to do it again this week. He's probably going to push 300 yards, get at least a touchdown or two, because that's just what Baltimore gives up.
Yeah, that's fair. Is Buffalo, with Houston's loss to New York and the way Baltimore got shown a little bit of their weaknesses, is Buffalo clearly the second best team in the AFC now?
Yeah, right now.
You think right now?
I know they're tied with Pittsburgh by record, but we don't expect Pittsburgh to be this good moving forward. They have a really tough second half of the schedule, so we'll see what they look like, because their strength of schedule right now, the teams they've beaten have only won 44% of their games.
Yeah.
I mean, Buffalo's has only been 42% of their games, so there's that.
Yeah, Pittsburgh's schedule gets tough.
So we'll see what Pittsburgh looks like moving forward, but if I'm Buffalo, I'm thinking we have the inside track to the 2 seed.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they always seem to beat Miami when they need to, and Miami just doesn't play well against good teams.
And I think the Rams, I really like the Rams this week, and I think I probably, if the Rams play I think they're going to play and get this win, I'm probably going to, I don't normally make mid-season, into the season future bets, but I'd probably throw some money at the Rams, probably to at least make the playoffs and maybe even win the division.
The Rams are plus 390 to win the NFC East as we speak. And to win the conference, they are plus 2,800.
Yeah, I really don't have a problem with that because San Francisco feels beatable. And if it's not Detroit, then somebody's got to win the NFC. It should be Detroit, but if it's not...
But you would still think San Francisco's going to get their guys back and be fully healthy. And when I guess if Christian McCaffrey comes back, that's going to be a tough team.
Yeah, I would agree. But yes, if McCaffrey comes back, they can still be pretty good. I guess I'm just really kind of impressed more on the defensive side of the ball for the Rams and the offense. They've done a really good job of filling the gap left by Aaron Donald. And we know McVay knows how to coach against Shanahan. So,
yeah, fair enough. All right. Well, week 9, we'll see how it goes before the Browns hit the bye, and then we'll do our mid-season recap of where the Browns are as not just a team, but as an organization, and maybe we'll even get to hear from Andrew Berry. Can't wait for that.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining me tonight, Jimmy.
No place I'd rather be, brother.
And I want to thank all of you for listening. For Jimmy Champ, I'm Evan Belfiore. Thank you for listening to No Broken Legs.